Hi, I'm David Johnson, and this is Verse by Verse. In 1866, Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel invented the explosive known as dynamite. Though it was originally intended for civilian use, it was quickly adapted by the armies of the world to create increasingly powerful explosive devices. At the end of his life, Nobel decided to bequeath most of his fortune to establish an organization to award special prizes to outstanding scientists and philanthropists. Probably the most recognizable of those prizes is the Nobel Peace Prize, which is awarded by a special committee of 5 people selected by the Norwegian Senate. Between 1901 and 2024, the Nobel Peace Prize had been awarded to 111 individuals and 31 organizations. Yet, according to Britain's Imperial War Museum, there have been no years during that same period of time when the world has been free of armed conflict at some level. Of course, war is nothing new. Political scientist and historian Hans Morgenthau once described the entire history of mankind as being little more than the story of nations preparing for war, engaging in war, or recovering from war. No one has experienced war in all of its terribleness and thinks that war is a good thing. So why is peace so elusive? The Nobel Peace Prize honors brilliant, dedicated people for their efforts to bring about peace, but there's still no peace. Religious leaders pray for peace, but there's still no peace. Governments form international organizations for the purpose of bringing peace, but there is still no peace. Anciently, the prophet Isaiah, in describing the society of his day, was inspired to write, "The way of peace they have not known." Centuries later, the Apostle Paul quoted Isaiah's words to show that the same statement was true in his day, not just the nation of Israel 600 years earlier. Now, 2,000 years later, when we look around us, still painfully true today. Was Isaiah just a political pundit of his day, decrying the way things were but offering no real solutions? Isaiah seems to be saying that there actually is a way that produces real and lasting peace. So why can't anyone seem to find that pathway? Actually, it's already been established, clearly labeled, and thousands of people have already taken that journey. But the rest of mankind refuses to believe peace could come from walking down that path. So, how did God inspire Isaiah to describe the one and only way that produces peace? Notice I didn't say the way that leads to peace. Peace is not something we stumble into at the end of a long, weary journey. It is a condition that must be produced. Jesus talked about blessings upon the peacemakers, not the peace acceptors. So, what did Isaiah write? It's found in Isaiah 32, verse 17. "The work of righteousness will be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever." The word work in this passage refers to the product a workman produces, like a carpenter produces a cabinet or a house. The work, the product of living righteously, is peace. And God did not leave us to wonder what he meant by righteousness. Near the end of the longest psalm in Scripture, Psalm 119, a psalm where David had been praising the beauty and wisdom of God's law, David wrote in verse 172, "My tongue shall speak of your word, for all your commandments are righteousness." And that's still not all. Jesus Christ came and lived a perfectly righteous life, showing us exactly what true righteousness looks like. Just prior to his birth, Zacharias the priest, father of John the Baptist, had been inspired to prophesy what Jesus would accomplish. And in Luke 1, verse 79, he said, "Jesus came to give light to those who sit in darkness and the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace." This podcast is not going to change the course of nations and bring about world peace. Only Jesus Christ has the power and wisdom to do that, and he will do exactly that. That doesn't mean you and I cannot achieve a level of peace in our lives today. To do that, there's only one pathway to walk, both for nations and for individuals. If you and I want peace, quietness, and assurance in our lives, then we must be living a righteous way. Not our own ideas of righteousness, but the righteousness defined by God in His law. Mankind has spent thousands of years trying to find another way and has always failed. Will we continue that fruitless search, or will we humble ourselves and submit to the one and only way that will work? If you want peace in your life, a great place to start is by downloading our free booklet, God's 10 Commandments, Still Relevant Today. You'll find a link in the show notes.
Verse by Verse is a Life, Hope, and Truth podcast. Check out the show notes to find more free content like videos, articles, and booklets in our Learning Center.